From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew Armey-Head alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, we are going cross-country to the Oregon Trail to learn about some mergers and acquisitions for small business. Patrick Rogers, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Patrick, how's a nice New York boy like you go from Rensselaer University, all buttoned up, and then go left?
Okay.
In pursuit of manifest destiny.
There you go. Oh, man. Great question. Studied nuclear engineering at an RPI in New York there. And then I became an officer in the Navy and became a naval nuclear officer. And they shipped me out to San Diego. And man, once you get a taste of the West Coast, brother, once you get a taste of that low humidity, and just, man, there's just so much to do out here and hunt and everything else. I just, kind of stuck out here.
Thank you so much. Matt and I love being the dumbest guys in the room, but we're definitely the dumbest guys on this podcast.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate it.
So, Pat, tell us, what does M&A mean to you? Like, when you say M&A to the average American, they have these highfalutin notions of some guy with white shoes and a three-piece suit on Wall Street, like Matt was 20 years ago. But at the end of the day, a merger, an acquisition, succession planning, this applies to every small business in America. So you could just kind of give us a deep dive into how this can apply to the average mechanic or the average HVAC guy.
Yeah, great question, Lou. The biggest thing is, well, first of all, clearly I'm not the guy in the white shirt and tie and all that kind of stuff. And in today's day and age, you definitely don't have to be. But, mergers and acquisitions for the companies that we focus on, first of all, why do we do it? Why do we even focus on M&A for the $4 to $40 million companies, right? Well, first of all, it's really to create freedom. I joined the Navy. Why did I join the Navy? To stand up, to protect our country, to protect that very freedom. And the major problem in America and in business is that, our clients face is that while maybe we grow organically internally in a company, you grow 10 to 15% maybe. When we say M&A, we're talking about really primarily acquisitions. When you're a $4 million, $10 million company, many people don't know it, but you can very easily, a lot more easily than you think of, acquire another company of equal size. And that's what we help our clients do, is we help them acquire one business every year of at least their current size. And when we do that, what we're pursuing, this is not just, organic growth. We're growing 10%. Oh, I got an extra, $10,000, $15,000 in my pocket. What we're doing is we're creating freedom through the world. And we're doing this for entrepreneurs, because when entrepreneurs win, entrepreneurs are the freedoms that we create, freedom that's a bedrock of the world. Not only do they create generational wealth for the families, but entrepreneurs get out there and they do great things. They give back. They're philanthropic. So my clients, taking an example, they're able to more than 20 to 25x the business value in 5 years or less with this strategy. So a $4 million company can grow to $60 million valuation or more in 5 years. And it's all possible with the right acquisition strategy. So when I think of mergers and acquisitions, it's just, hey, HVAC company up in Seattle, it's acquiring another HVAC company in Seattle or that area at first of equal or greater size in the first year.
Patrick, what you're telling us is pure platinum. However, sometimes people resonate best with actual case studies or examples. Without giving us company names or individuals, just through a typical Patrick Rogers deal and how it works and how then we can apply this to the average mom and pop on Main Street.
Yeah, no, great question. So let's say Okay, so let's say you own a company. Let's say it's I don't know. Okay, so we'll go back to a company that we helped. It was a $2 million HVAC company, actually here in the Northwest, and they were experiencing growing pains simply because right now in today's day and age, as everybody knows, it's hard to find good technicians. Okay, that's one of the major things. If you're in a service company, one of your constraints for growth is finding good people. So he had a lot of work that he could have gotten to, but he couldn't service them. So he started his company back in 2017. He was able to grow it. Actually, he was my client for 3 years. We got him from 600,000 to 1.7 million in 2 years, but he wanted faster growth. And he realized that with that current growth strategy, maybe 20 years from now, we might be up to 10 million, but he wanted something faster. He wanted to create generational wealth. And well, why do we go into business? We originally go into business to create the lifestyle for yourself that allows you and your family to do whatever you want, to travel when they want to buy whatever, wherever, and not be a slave to the business like this gentleman was. And that's what so many CEOs, I know they resonate with it because I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of CEOs in this exact range that they're every day, they're in their business, and that's all they're focused on is their business. That's what they see. That's what we're trained to see. Well, when we showed him this strategy, we helped him acquire a $3.1 million plumbing company. And not only did he walk into a brand new $600,000 per year of additional profit cash flow, they both serve the same clientele in the same city. They're both commercial. So one was HVAC, one was a plumbing company. So now every time an HVAC company is bid through this company, they are also bidding the plumbing that goes with it, and then vice versa. So he not only went from being a 1.7 million to 5 million just by acquiring a 3.1, but both companies experienced hockey stick growth because of that synergy. And so now he's not involved in the day-to-day of any business. He has people running both those businesses. And when you do buy these businesses, that's one of the most important things is you're not buying another headache. We're looking for companies to acquire where either the existing person stays there, maybe you acquire a majority interest, maybe you acquire 70 to 80% of it, and that CEO stays there and has a 20 to 30% stake, or maybe there's a number two in command. Maybe you cash out that CEO 100% and you leave that number two in command and you put some golden handcuffs in place to make sure maybe you give them some equity. And that's one of the, I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but if you do acquire a company, whoever you're going to have run it, you want to put some golden handcuffs in place, some things that are going to incentivize them to be part owners of it.
Well, I put the cart before the horse because when you're dealing with small business, key personnel are key. And without them, there is no business.
Absolutely. Because, it's one thing to be an owner operator, but at the end of the day, if you're going to go out and acquire multiple companies, you're going to be the owner and you're going to oversee all the operators inside the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, and it's important too, right? Because this is where, we can talk about why acquisitions have failed in the past, but if you buy a company and you think that you're going to go and be the CEO of that one too, and the CEO of this one and run both of them without having what we call an integrator, right? That person who's taking care of the day-to-day operations and really running the thing, you're probably going to acquire one company and you're going to stop, right? Because there's just too much there. So it's really important that when you do buy that company, you have somebody that runs the company for you, because then you can go. So let's say you start out, you're a $4 million annual revenue company. Let's say you're $1 million EBITDA. You buy another $4 million HVAC company. So now you're 8 million in year two. If you don't buy it correctly, and Lou, to your point, have the people set up correctly, you now have to devote your energy into running the second company while you're doing the first one, right? So, but if you buy it correctly, now you have an $8 million total annual revenue between the two, let's say 2 million EBITDA. And it's so much easier to now go and buy another $8 million company. So in 2 years, you went from 4 to 16 million, and then you go from 16 to 32. That's what we're talking about.
Patrick, in your example, you had one company that sought to diversify their service platform, right? And they were able to add on new services, right? So 1 + 1 should equal 3 with your model. Have you found a lot of activity in businesses that are looking to expand geographically?
Yes.
Using an HVAC guy and a landscape person, there's only so much you can drive geographically before you start experiencing diminishing returns. So Walk us through some examples on how people have acquired or grown through geographic expansion.
Yep. So I won't say the actual states because we actually have an active client that we're working with, but one would be a pest control company, right? So pest control company, we're reaching out to their immediate area and looking for anybody in their immediate area that they can absorb because that's easy. And there might be smaller companies. So one of our clients is a $4 million pest control company. So we're reaching out and we're in talks with a number of people that have, 500,000 in that area that they can just absorb. That's easy. That's just bring it in. We've already got the people. We've got the management. That's already easy in place. Now, once we start going out geographically, which we're doing, we're going out, 3 hours away, maybe within one flight away that they can get there easily. Again, the most important thing is geographically that we buy it with proper people in place. That's the most important thing. So like for this company, they're a pest control company located here. Well, we're going to buy something across the state, on the other side of the state, or in one of the surrounding states. And from a geographic expansion standpoint, it's kind of a no-brainer for them.
And Patrick, how about the other scenario, which involves succession planning? Let's say you have an individual that maybe is not as aggressive as he or she may have been in their heyday, but now they're getting a little long in the tooth and they have not done any sort of succession planning, but they've got a vibrant business. And as this person gets older, so does the business, and things start to get a little bit lazy and a little bit retarded. So walk us through some strategies for that person that is getting a little long in the tooth, but doesn't want all his hard work to dissipate.
So basically you're asking somebody not necessarily looking for acquisitions, but somebody who wants to sell the business and get the most they can for it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, the biggest thing there is there's a lot of things that when we look at how you value a company, and I'm a certified exit planning advisor. So when we look at the value of a company, how we determine the value of most companies is the EBITDA times some kind of a multiple, right? And that multiple is going to depend on a number of factors. One of the biggest factors, the number one factor, is the size of the company, right? If it's a 4 million annual revenue company, that multiple might be 4, maybe 3, maybe 4, 3 to 5, somewhere in there. If it's a $20 million company with $4 million of EBITDA, well, that multiple is probably going to be like a 7, right? And why is that? The reason is because private equity companies and other companies are willing to pay a premium for a company that is well run. It's professionally run. The larger the company, it's just a natural assumption that the more professionally it's going to be run, it's going to be less of a headache for them to purchase that because it's so professionally run. They already have good people, so they're willing to pay a premium. So having said that, what we want to do is whatever company we're at, let's assume we don't want to grow our top line revenue. Let's assume we just want to take the company wherever it is. I don't want to put in a lot of sales and marketing energy right now. I just want to take what I got, the EBITDA that I can, and maximize that multiple. Does that make sense? So how do we maximize that multiple? Well, we maximize that multiple with mainly doing internal structure things. And so what they're looking at is how much does the business run without the owner? First of all, can the business run completely without you? If you can go on a vacation for 3 months, come back and the business is doing just as good, if not better, then that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing when it comes to that valuation. Other things that we're looking for to increase that valuation, to maximize that valuation is there any customers that have more than 20% of the total revenue? That's not a good thing. Are there any vendors or suppliers that we're solely dependent on? What's been the growth trajectory of the company? Are we stagnant? Are we actually declining? All of those things are going to reduce that multiple. What is the plan for the future? Are there what kind of organizational structure? Have we implemented things like EOS or systems? Are we having weekly meetings, quarterly meetings? Is there structure in place? All of that kind of stuff drastically increase that multiple. The other thing is recurring revenue. And I'm rattling off a whole bunch of stuff. I apologize, but this is what I'm passionate about, right? So how much of the business is recurring revenue versus I have to go out and resell somebody every time I want new business versus I've got contracts in place and recurring revenue. Well, that's a lot more valuable when we're looking at that multiple.
Hey, Pat, would you mind spending maybe a few seconds on that amorphous term, goodwill?
Oh, goodwill. Yeah, we love goodwill when we're purchasing companies.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so goodwill could mean a couple things. Mainly when we see it, when we're talking $20 million and smaller companies, when you pull up a balance sheet, you're going to see goodwill there. It could mean a number of things. Typically, it's the value that somebody else paid for that company when they bought it. That's typically what it means. Some people try to put in there things like if they've paid some kind of a loan to themselves or from the company, right? They'll call that goodwill. Goodwill can also be, once you start getting larger companies, if there's a strategic acquisition, if we're looking at IP, I just had a conversation, literally just before this, I got a conversation with a gal who they're pre-revenue, no revenue, and they're looking to be acquired and will probably get it for $250 million. That's $250 million of goodwill, right? So goodwill
on that balance sheet.
IP, right? It applies to IP or strategic, that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100%. There's so many synergies. If you're in the same industry, you're sticking inside your flywheel. But what matters is that you can just leverage the operating expenses from one company to another and increase the bottom line from that point on, right? We love this strategy. We even wrote a book about it. And the book was more about don't go start a business, just go buy one and start from there.
I will never start a business again. Friggin' 30.
What are you seeing with everybody's aware? Money's getting tight these days for everybody across the board. Inflation's hurting everybody. Interest rates are on the rise. Okay. SBA actually did a couple cool things that will allow investors to actually put the down payment on for acquisition of a business, which wasn't allowed before. What are you seeing in the finance world when it comes to lending and putting deals together? Are you seeing people be more creative or still sticking with traditional routes?
Well, it depends on the size of the company, right? SBA, you can only go up to 5 million. Experience with SBA is that they're not, if it's an SBA loan, there's a lot less creativity that you can do without taking on some kind of risk or liability of doing something behind the SBA's back, right? They don't allow owner financing, right? So if at all possible, and here to your point, I mean, one of the things that's happening that we all know is baby boomers are retiring. Baby boomers are retiring in droves. We're in the middle of the largest transfer of wealth that's ever occurred in history, right? $10 trillion is in the middle of the transfer. And what is happening is, although brokers and everybody else will try to paint the facade that it's a seller's market, it's a buyer's market. There are lots of companies out there, lots of business owners who are retiring and are willing to be very, very generous on giving up equity, but B, open to creative ways to make that transaction happen. So the baby boomers, what's interesting about them, most baby boomers who own a business, they already have money set aside, most of them. Money's important. They don't want to get taken advantage of. That's for sure. But what's really important to the baby boomers is the legacy and their people. So whenever we're working with baby boomers and we're negotiating, what we're really relying on is what we're talking about. And this would be a negotiation strategy for anybody out there who is looking to do acquisitions. When you're talking with a baby boomer, what's important to them is legacy and their people taken care of. So what are you going to do when you buy that company to preserve their legacy? And how are you going to ensure that their people are going to be taken care of? That is so important. And if you develop a relationship with them and they trust you, then they're willing to help you be successful. And that may mean reduction in price, better terms, owner carry, whatever that is, to help with the transaction.
So what are you seeing the typical down payment, cash out of pocket be these days to an owner, right?
We are seeing 10%.
10%. And then the rest in chunks or owner finance, or maybe even keeping the owner on as a consultant sometimes. Maybe they don't really want to retire. They just want to unlock some value from their business.
Yeah, it depends, right? It depends on how old they are, primarily. It depends on how old they are. If they're 73 years old, they probably want to get out as soon as possible, and they're just ready. Their mind is on a beach in Florida or a retirement home in Arizona, right? But it depends. So typically our typical transaction might be 10% down, traditional financing loan for, 70% of it, and then the owner carry maybe 20% of it. Or maybe there is no really, instead of owner carry, maybe it's the owner gets a share of the profits for a year if they stick around, or for 2 years. So now they're incentivized to, help grow the company. So there's just so many ways to really, skin this cat.
Yeah, I love that. One of the best things, one reason I love acquisition is because you can get as creative as possible. There really are no rules. You just got to understand the motivations of the seller and your own motivations and figure it out from that point on.
Yeah. Let me throw out another great strategy that we utilize. So coming into it, how we talked before about, we love to have the people that are, the other number one and number two people who are going to be running the business. We love them to have some skin in the game, because if they have skin in the game, and I'm not just saying like when we purchase it, giving them equity, because again, as you guys know, anything you just give to somebody, it means squat, right? Or I mean, it means something, but not as much as if when we're going into this, we work with part of the strategy in negotiations is to have the number one and number two person team up with us and actually come in with some capital to buy their own equity. So now when we're talking about that 10% down, well, let's say the number one person there is the COO, who currently doesn't have any ownership, but they have $100,000 or $150,000. Okay, well, here's the value of the company. You come in with $150,000, we're going to give you X% equity. Well, that just reduced the amount we have to come up with, didn't it?
Yeah.
So we like to do that as well. So there's, and then, and kind of back to what we're talking about before, when we're talking, a company with a lot of assets, manufacturing company, transportation, logistics, depending on what it is. I mean, you have leverage, you have leverage to work off of. And so it's a lot easier to get, getting funds approved for those kind, as you guys know.
So Patrick, the reason I love your company is you're doing something a lot different than most people out there. A lot of people are telling you what to do, but they're not actually doing it for you. And your strategy is a little bit different because you guys roll up your sleeves, you get your heads dirty, right? You're hunting down these companies, you're negotiating, right? So walk us through what you guys do step by step for everybody listening. Because this is overwhelming to just learn. If you're a business owner, you're like, I want to make an acquisition, but I got to learn all this shit. I don't want to do this. So explain to us how your M&A firm works and your advisory practice.
Great question, man. So the first thing is we do like a 30-minute, just a strategy call. Just, hey, what industry and what do you specialize in? What do you focus on? And then we develop the strategy. And when we look at strategy, there's horizontal strategy, which is, again, let's say I'm an HVAC company, it's buying other HVAC companies. That's horizontal. And then we look at, okay, what are the complementary companies like that plumbing company where we could have some synergies with hockey stick growth. So that's all kind of along the horizontal. And then you have a vertical acquisition strategy, which would be, if you're a B2B company, a downstream vertical would be purchasing your clients, and an upstream vertical would be purchasing your suppliers and vendors. And now, why would somebody want to do that? Margin control of your inventory, control of your raw material, your goods, things like that. So, but typically when we start out, I don't want to confuse anybody. Typically it's buying your competitors, right? Or geographically reaching out to like companies. That's typically. So what we do is we do that. And then we we find the companies we're going to go after. We generate a list.
Wait, guys, one second right there, Patrick, because I just want to interject for a second and ask you a question. Are you guys just going to business brokers to find these companies, or are you actually explain that a little bit? Because that's what most people do. They go to biz, buy, sell, and they start looking and they're playing.
Just for clarity for the audience, Matt said business brokers. The the eyebrow raise and the look of disdain on Patrick Rogers' face is worth $1 million. You better watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, totally. So absolutely. Okay. So are we going to go to the business brokers and look on? Yes, absolutely. Are we going to buy it through that way? Probably not. Because here's what happens, guys. And I thank you for bringing this up. A lot of business brokers hate that I say this, but it's freaking truth. Business brokers get a hold of somebody, and again, no offense for business brokers if you're out there, but this is the way I see it, man, or gal, whatever you are. So kind of like realtors, they want to fight for the business. So they tell a business owner, oh, your business is, let's say it's actually worth 1.5 million. That's what it's going to sell for. Well, a business, and this is, I have a business right now that we might buy that actually came from a business broker. Crazy. But it was listed for $2.7 million. It had no business being listed for $2.7 million. So they sell a pipe dream. They put it on a listing. It sits there. It sits there. It sits there. This is what's happening. This is literally what's happening. Then this person who is thinking about retirement, meanwhile, they're not putting the energy into their business because they think it's going to sell for $2.7 million. They're thinking about all the RV they're going to buy, the boat they're going to buy, this, that, and the business drops and drops and drops. And now, the thing that was supposed to be sold at 1.5 million is still sitting at 2.7 million a year later. The price gets dropped, and so anyways, no, we don't go after business brokers. We're going to look, but if we get in any kind of a transaction with business brokers, they usually F it up in some form or fashion. They plant seeds in the owner's heads that are unrealistic. One of the ones I was dealing with right now was we were looking to purchase the company, and we sent them an LOI and everything was good and agreed upon. And then the broker put a bug in their ear. Well, you should get the retained earnings. You should get the retained. So you guys did all that work for the last 6 months, and you've got these projects in place for there's another $250,000 of retained earnings that's going to come in after you close. You should get that. What are you talking about? Oh,
what are you buying? You're buying those retained earnings.
You're buying those retained earnings. That's the whole point, right? We base it on the EBITDA of the company times the multiple, like the day it closes, everything. So that's an example. So, great point. So we go directly. So we're finding out the owner's information. Let's say I'm buying an HVAC company in Washington. We're going to get a list of all HVAC companies in Washington. We're going to email the owner. We're going to call the owner. We're going to reach out, and we're going to have our proprietary message, and we're going to set up a time to have a conversation with them and see what their druthers are, see what they want out of it, see what they're looking for, see what problems they have, and we're going to put together a solution for them. So then we get from them the financials. So the first thing we get is the last year-to-date financials in the last 2 years, plus the balance sheet. And then from there, we can give them an offer. After some discussions, we send them a questionnaire, a full questionnaire that gives us an idea of the business, right? How much is recurring revenue, all the contract, all the information. And then from there, we start negotiations. From there, once we have an agreed upon price, we send them an LOI verbally. We have an agreed upon price. We send them an LOI, a letter of intent, which is non-binding. It's a very much non-binding thing. We agree on it. The next step is we enter the real work begins. Now, we enter the due diligence phase. And there's 2 reasons why companies under $20 million, when they do an acquisition, it doesn't work. The first one is they pay too much because they went through a broker. Sorry, brokers. Number 2 is they don't do proper due diligence through the process. And so we have a process that we take them through, and it's an extreme. We send them first, as soon as we enter due diligence, we send them this 27-page document, and it's all the things that we need from them. And that just starts the due diligence clock. We go through 45, 60 days, maybe, depending on everything. Due diligence, making sure everything that they say is as they said it was. If it's not, we come back to the table, we renegotiate. If it is, we close, and funding's all approved, and working on integration.
I love that.
Matt, this is why you need a nuclear engineer to do mergers and acquisitions.
There you go.
No, I love that strategy, and I love that fact that your company doing that, because there's not many companies in that space that are actually doing that at this time, right?
Yeah, no, there's lots of companies like 500 million and above, but nobody's doing it in this space.
How are you guys seeing look, there's been a lot of federal money pumped into the system since 2020, right? Majority of businesses out there have EIDL loans in place, right? How are you guys seeing that handled recently in these days with acquisitions if the owner still has the EIDL on the books? Are you setting, are you buying
What?
the like EIDL loan on the books? If they still had an EIDL loan on the books and the owner's selling, how are you seeing that being handled?
Yeah. So if it's, well, and I forget EIDLs. I haven't worked with that one specifically. One company is an ERC, right? They have ERC loans out, which is really they forgived and the money's coming in. It's part of everything's negotiable. It really is. So my take on it is, if the owner truly suffered during 2020, they had less income, and because of it, and they're now getting the money back now, or it's forgiven, or like ERCs, then that makes more sense. So with EIDLs though, so tell me a little bit more, like what
So the difference between, we've done several $100 million in ERC for our clients, right? We've helped our clients get a lot of EIDL loans too.
Yeah.
After the pandemic, EIDL is already cut off, but EIDL went up to about $3 million a business to get, right? So that's a 30-year loan that's on the business, right? Where they need to get permission, from my point of view, from what I've read, in order to sell the business from the government. I just want to know if you came across anything like that.
I really haven't come across the EIDLs yet.
Okay. Yeah, ERC, PPP, they probably shouldn't have had to forgive it, right? If they did it, that was just on that. ERC is money that they paid back into the payroll system. Right. The government actually gave it back to them because they suffered some type of shutdown or revenue decline during the pandemic, right? So that's not an issue either. It's the EIDLs that get a little tricky out there, especially with these smaller businesses. Also, with the smaller businesses, but too, and this is one thing our partner Byron does, is going through their financials. Some of these people don't have their books in order, right?
Oh,
so how do you handle that? Do you have the books audited? Do you work with their accountant? What do you guys do?
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's tough. We love a company, and again, this actually reflects to the multiple that we're willing to pay, right? Because if we're going to purchase a company that's on a cash basis, which they're out there, and good luck really establishing the true value of something that's in cash value and everything else, it's really tough. So yeah, typically what we do is, first of all, we have an in-house financial team, and they take a look at the books, and they look at the reconciliations. They look at everything. Does this make sense? Does it not make sense? Ideally, if it does not make sense, then yes, you got to have some help to get the books in order so you know what you're buying. I mean, if you don't, you can get screwed. I mean, bottom line. And so if a company's on cash basis, we have to do a lot of auditing, a lot of transitioning to an accrual basis to figure out what its real value is.
Patrick, you're a lot more graceful than we are. When we see books that are in this array, we run for the hills, man. You're a lot more eloquent than we are.
Well, sometimes there's like one company, we ended up purchasing it at less than it was like a 1.7 multiple. It was a cash basis, and it was a little scary, but once we figured it out, we got an amazing multiple on it, and they understood why we were paying a lot less for it. So
tell me you haven't gotten that mom and pop entrepreneur that shows up with the ledger from his Ford pickup truck.
Sometimes there's gold in them hills. Are you willing to have the patience to weed through it?
Yeah.
Patrick, I don't want to. Believe me, I don't want to. But sometimes the deal is that good and just makes that much sense for our clients.
Patrick, we want to be respectful for your time. We really appreciate you being here. Why don't you tell the audience where they can find you, your company, and how they can get in touch with you?
Awesome, man. Yeah, appreciate it. So my website is Patrick, Patrick, V as in Vincent, Rogers, Rogers. So patrickvrogers.com. And if you go there, you'll see a big old smiling picture of me, and there's a big old, I think it's a blue button, I'm not sure, but you can click on it and hook up with a free strategy call for me. It'll ask you a few questions about your company. And then, I'll hop on a totally free call. And then I'll actually as kind of like my give back to you for taking a few minutes and spending time with me. I'll send you a copy of my book when you after that first call. And our book is it actually outlines the complete strategy that we do. It's called Double Your Revenues Every Year Guaranteed. And we give everything in there. Literally, we even have our due diligence there, the 27-page document that we send to our clients. It's inside that book. So after that 30-minute call, that's one of the things we do as a kind of a thank you.
I love it. Patrick, thank you so much for being here. And we learned a lot. So I'm sure the audience learned a lot as well. I got one question before they let you run. If you had to pick only one industry right now to start looking to make acquisitions in, what would it be?
Manufacturing. And I would probably do medical or aerospace manufacturing.
Awesome. Patrick, thank you so much. Everybody, that's a wrap at the Liquid Launch Project. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Launch Project.